show a bit of diversity. Okay, so calling all mixed ability teachers. So that's you, I guess, if you've signed up to this webinar. It's also me. So I used to teach mixed ability classes as well. Going to start with trying to get you to guess an idiom. Okay, so I've got an idiom here. We mixed ability teachers have something. Okay, the idiom means we have it quite difficult. It can be quite a challenge. We've got lots of things to do. Okay, so I wonder if anyone can spot the idiom I'm looking for here. Okay, perhaps might need a little clue. Okay, so what is all of the food on top of? What is the food on top of? What's the piece of crockery that we're serving the food on? I can see we've got somebody to, okay, a plate. Good. So I wonder if anyone knows the idiom then. So we mixed ability teachers have plate. Food for thought. Yeah, good. I'm going to give you an extra clue. We have on our plate. Okay. And I guess if you didn't know the idiom, then this will have served to teach it. Okay. I'll just let I think there's one more person finishing writing. Okay, I'm gonna let you breakfast. Yeah, we have a lot on our plate. Okay, so that's what I was trying to elicit from you. We have a lot on our plate, so we have lots of things to think about when we're mixed ability teachers. Okay, so that was the idiom, and you can also see there's lots of different things on the plate as well, which maybe it kind of represents what we'll encounter in these classes. Okay, so mixed ability teachers then we tend to have encounter challenges in the classroom. I wonder if any of these challenges sound familiar to you. Okay, number one, weaker students sometimes give up on the work I give them. Okay, sometimes you set an activity to the class. Some can do it and some can't. Okay, has that ever happened to you? How about stronger students finishing the classwork very quickly? Okay, this also can pose an issue for the teacher, because it means students from both of these groups might get bored, might switch off and start messing about. So we start to get kind of classroom management issues or disciplinary issues. And we teachers, we're told we should be responding to the needs of every student, and that might be 30 students in a class, and maybe we teach 8 different classes. So that's a lot of students, 240 if my math serves me right. So we're quite challenged, I guess, as teachers. And again, this can lead to a frustrated teacher. Yeah, so that picture, that's a picture of me. As you can probably see, I was trying to look frustrated there, possibly look maybe a bit angry as well as frustrated, but you might feel that way as well. Okay, so we have certain challenges as mixed ability teachers. However, let's not get too negative. Okay, let's keep calm, take a step back. We're probably doing a pretty good job as it is. Okay, I've got another question for you in the chat box. Have a look at this picture, okay, and I want you to tell me if this glass is half empty or if it's half full. Okay, so have a good look and tell me in the chat box, is that glass half empty or is that glass half full? Okay, Fatima, very fast there. She's sure that glass is half full. Okay, same with Montserrat. Okay. Oh, music to my ears. Okay, so I can see we've got a lot of optimistic and positive teachers in this webinar who are all telling me that this glass is half full. Okay, so where am I going with this half full business? Well, the point I'm making is that teaching mixed ability classes also has advantages, not only disadvantages. Okay, there's lots of advantages in teaching these classes. Perhaps you agree with me here. Perhaps you could share with me in the chat box, is there anything you like about teaching mixed ability classes? What are the advantages? What are the benefits of teaching these types of classes? Any ideas? Yeah, great, Jose. It makes you be creative. It's challenging for the teacher. Cooperation. Okay. Okay. You're. I'm going to present what I think in a second, and I can see that we agree on this. Okay. We've come up with the same ideas. Okay. So my first point to make is mixed ability classes are something of a microcosm of society. So they represent what we'll encounter in society, or what students will encounter in society when they leave school. Okay, so in a mixed ability classroom, we should be getting quite a variety of ideas, lots of different input from students of different levels, different backgrounds, who have different interests. Okay, and this idea of helping others, these mixed ability classes, they hopefully will engender values that we want to see in our students, like respect or tolerance. Okay, so we can build up these values in these types of classes. Linked to that first point, and again, this is something that Susanna mentioned, mixed ability classes encourage cooperative learning. So education in general, or classes in general, are becoming more student-centered, aren't they? And not as teacher-centered. Okay, it's not just the teacher kind of delivering a lecture anymore. There's lots more group work, cooperative work. Okay, and we can have so say pair work, group work, groups assigning students different roles, students teaching each other, and of course this is beneficial for weaker students to receive help from stronger students, but also stronger students, once they can really sort of explain something, that means that they can understand it, so they can also benefit from cooperative work too. Okay, and finally, and this is something you also touched on, studies show that we become better teachers in mixed ability classes. Okay, so we've mentioned that they challenge us, and we might improve anything from our classroom management to our materials development. We have to be creative, as somebody suggested, and these challenges will make us a better teacher. Okay, good. So that was just something. That was a little introduction, if you like, to the session. The rest of the session is going to be split into two parts. So the first part is to do with general principles and strategies around mixed ability classes. And then the second part is going to be 3 activity progressions around, the first one around listening and speaking, then grammar, and then writing. And typical progressions that we'll see in any class, and I've tried to show what I would do, or what I do with these activities in mixed ability classes. Okay, so how to give them a mixed ability flavor. Okay, good. Let's begin with the first part of the webinar. Okay, general principles and strategies. Okay, general principle number 1, all students need to feel the satisfaction of finishing a task. So if you imagine in a class, you set the class an exercise and they get on with it, and some students finish very quickly and perhaps they start having a chat, maybe a little bit of light messing about, and this makes the teacher feel uneasy, and we think, right, we've got to stop this. So we say to our class, okay, don't worry if you've not finished, we're going to go over that activity as a group. Okay, and then we go over it with all students. But some students, the slow ones, haven't had a chance to finish. Okay, now we could do this perhaps now and again, but if this is our general approach, then these slower students will never finish an activity, which is really demotivating for them, and it's going to sort of really hurt their self-esteem. So I don't think it's an option as a general rule. Okay, so what do we do? Well, of course, again, on a very general level, we would present some activities which are core or compulsory. So using words like at least, so everyone has to do at least this, and present further activities which are extension activities or optional activities. Okay, so this is a good way of avoiding stigma. So rather than just saying you do this and you do that, we give students a bit of choice. Okay, how would we present this to students, this idea of core and optional? Well, we could say core and optional. We probably wouldn't say easy, medium and hard, or basic, okay, because words like easy and basic have certain connotations. Okay, we can have a bit of fun with this as well. So, for example, we might say these activities are the main dish. Okay, so everyone needs to have a main dish. But how hungry are you feeling? Can anyone manage a side dish or even a dessert? Okay, so these activities are going to be perhaps a little bit harder. Okay, but we want everyone to do the main dish, and then if they're feeling hungry enough, they can have a side dish or a dessert. So we might have activities up next to these. Okay. Taking the food idea even further, what about the spiciness of a curry? Okay, so a korma is something that everyone needs to eat, and then if you can handle it, you go on to a chicken tikka, which is actually the most popular dish in Britain, according to what I've read. Okay, it's very, very popular over there. But anyway, what would be the next level here? Does anyone know any really hot curries? Okay, any really hot? What's going to be the spicy one coming up next? Let's see what your food knowledge is like. Any ideas? What's considered the spiciest curry? It begins with a V, actually. I can see somebody's writing. But they're probably not sure. Okay, you got me there. Okay, so we're not sure. Okay, no worries. Well, the next one might be a vindaloo, very hot curry. I was made to eat one for my 18th birthday, and I've not eaten one since. Okay, so I couldn't handle it. Okay, you might even go even hotter, and there's supposedly a curry called a fal, which I've never tried, which is extra, extra, extra hot. Okay, but anyway, you get the general idea. Just ways of labeling these kind of core activities and extension activities and making a bit of fun. Okay. Um, Later on, of course, we'll get onto what these activities might be. So we're going to need some extra sources of, or easy sources of extra work. So very simple sources, of course. If you're using a course book, most course books will have worksheets and photocopiables which supplement the course book, perhaps of different levels of difficulty. So certainly it's always worth having some of those in your classroom to give to fast finishers, okay, because they need to be doing something. Okay, so that's one simple idea. What about the teacher's book? So the teacher's book, I find many teachers, we don't use the teacher's book all the time. We don't need a teacher's book to tell us how to do basic activities in a student's book because they're self-explanatory. But a good teacher's book will have lots of extra ideas to come at the end of a sequence. So it's worth just checking those out, both to apply to that specific lesson, but then you'll start to apply them to other lessons as well, just little extra twists and extra ideas we can give to activities. So check out your teacher's book for something like that too. Okay. Okay. Next basic principle. Strong learners can be models, of course. So, for example, if I'm doing some some vocabulary drilling, so some listen and repeat with the class, I might do it as a choral repetition, so getting the whole class to listen to me. Then I might choose students to repeat, and I might choose those with stronger pronunciation first to be a model. Similarly, if I wanted a dialogue acting out, I might get stronger students to model that as well. But it's not a good idea, I don't think, to always do that, because the students will kind of get wind of these select group always being used as a model. And I think the general idea here is to give everyone a chance to shine. Okay, so our students will have different strengths and weaknesses, and they should all get a chance to show what they can do. So I mean, this could be something so basic as certain students will be better at writing, some reading, some might be better at speaking. Some might prefer to work individually, some might like group work, okay? And it will have to do sometimes with things not related to pure English ability. So I had students who like drama, very dramatic, and they would really come into their own in any activities that had a dramatic element. Okay, so by providing these activities, I gave them a chance to shine, even though they weren't the best in the class at English. Okay, and again, when we get onto our practical ideas, we'll look at ways of doing that. Okay, and speaking of practical ideas, that's the next section, or the main section of the session, if you like. Some real activities that we can use in class to deal with mixed ability groups. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, first activity progression, which is to do with listening and speaking. Okay, so I've got my my page from my book, okay, and let's just have a quick look about what my students are asked to do. Okay, so you can see you've got a picture of 4 teenagers. There's a dialogue here, and the dialogue, the aim of the dialogue is to contextualize functional language, which shows surprise. So you can see there's sort of 4 purple expressions. No, really? I don't believe it. That's ridiculous, and you're joking. So the dialogue contextualizes those expressions. Okay. The students in exercise 1, they have to make some predictions by talking about the picture. In exercise 2, they have to listen and read the conversation. Exercise 3 is comprehension questions, and exercise 4 is acting out the conversation. Okay, so how would I interpret activities like this in a mixed ability class? Okay, let's have a look. Okay, number 2 says listen and read the conversation. Check your answers. I would probably say listen and read if you need to. So my strongest students might not need to read the conversation. Listening, they might be able to get enough to be able to answer the questions. So I would challenge them not to read unless they needed to. But this goes for listening, this goes for pure listening activities too. So I found that sometimes my very weakest students, they would get lost in listening and start to switch off, if you like, and it was hard to bring them back in. I don't know if you've had similar experiences. A similar a way to help them out, if you like, is to provide transcripts for them on the second listening. So again, this would be optional. I wouldn't necessarily say you need a transcript, but if a student feels that they do, perhaps on the second listening, they can have access to that, okay, to be able to answer the questions and get the most out of the activity. Not the first listening, okay, because I certainly want them to, I do want my students to try to develop listening skills as well, okay, and hopefully I can wean them off transcripts. But I do think it's a way of supporting very weak students, okay. While we're on the subject of transcripts, another thing you can do with them is to paste them into a word cloud generator, okay, such as Wordle or Tagxedo or WordSift. Okay, I'll have to put them in the chat box later on. And you can see the result of this word cloud, this pasting of a text into a word cloud generator. And you'll notice that some words are bigger than other words. Okay, so perhaps in the chat box you could tell me why some words are bigger than other words. Anybody know? Why are some of these words bigger? Yeah, Montserrat, so more important. Okay. Yeah, they appear more, exactly. So these are the high frequency words in the text. Or as teachers, what we might call the key words. Okay, and it's important to know what the key words are. If our students don't understand the keywords, they're going to have problems accessing the listening or accessing the reading. So I might decide to pre-teach some of these if I thought that was necessary for my weaker students. And again, rather just explaining what the words mean, there's more fun things we can do here. So we can get perhaps a couple of students up to the board and get them to splat a word that I define or give a synonym of or give an opposite of or for. So for example, let's see if you can splat the word. I'm going to imagine that you're splatting it. So find the word which means the title in a newspaper. The title in a newspaper. Can anyone find that word? Put it in the chat box when you can. Headlines. Okay. Yeah, good. Fatima, you were the fastest on the buzzer again. Okay, good stuff, Fatima. What about a synonym of significant? A synonym of significant. Can anyone find that? It's a bit smaller actually than the other one. So not necessarily a keyword. Yeah, important. So again, I can sort of pre-teach vocabulary that I consider to be necessary from this word cloud to perhaps give my weaker learners a bit of support for the listening. Okay, so that's another idea. Okay, good. On to the dialogue. Okay, so later on my students have to act out the dialogue. And there are 4 roles. Okay, so I can say to my student, like, get into groups of 4, act out the dialogue. But what else could I do with this dialogue? Is there anything I could do which is more interesting, or that might benefit a mixed ability class? Is there anything you do with dialogues when your students have to act them out? If you've got any ideas, feel free to put them in the chat box. What do you do with dialogues? There's quite a few things you can do with them. So you've got perhaps 1 or 2 people typing. Okay, let's have a look. Contextualize a situation with a real event they may experience. Okay, so preparing it, if you like, personalizing it, relating it to their contexts, recycling past expressions, ask students to write a similar one. Okay, yeah, certainly I think, yeah, that could be, indeed, Claudia, the rest of the activity progression on the next page, which we're not looking at, students will have to do something like that. So you predicted I think it's quite a logical progression. We want them to use that language, in their own way. Yeah, okay, good. Thanks, or reinvent, Fatima. Yeah, so different ideas coming there. But again, with mixed ability in mind, so again, starting off at a basic level, probably would give you can always assign roles. So you might give the longer roles, which is sort of Tom and Ash, to the stronger students first, okay, so that they can act as a model, okay? Another idea here is to use a disappearing dialogue. So once they've acted it out in groups, we hide some of the language from them, and then they need to act it out again, remembering what they said last time. And again, depending on the roles the students have, you might hide more language from the those that could deal with that. Okay, but it's a way of challenging them, but also it's a lot of fun. Okay, disappearing dialogues, just trying to remember what was there. You'll find you can get a lot of fun out of them in class. Okay, this one I made just by putting boxes on a screenshot from on PowerPoint. But of course, you could do this on a chalkboard. You could write a dialogue and start rubbing words out. So you wouldn't necessarily need technology. Okay. Again, what about with dialogues? We can often get our students to act out a dialogue with different emotions. Okay, so you might say, right, I want you to be bored, I want you to be excited, I want you to be tired, and you can see how the students interpret these emotions. It can be quite funny. Although better than just telling the whole class what everyone is going to have as an emotion is perhaps telling students individually what they are. They interpret that, and then the other students have to guess how they feel. Okay, they guess the emotion that's being represented. Okay, or the students choose the emotion, the other students have to guess. Okay, and some of these are quite hard to do, and the results can be quite funny. You could even get students up to the front, and then the rest of the audience are telling them what emotion they need to show, and it can change over the course of the dialogue. Again, and I've put the sort of shiny kind of square at the bottom here. Sort of my idea is, giving students a chance to shine these sort of dramatic students, which will really come into their own here with what is otherwise a fairly basic dialogue activity. Okay, so those are just a few ideas around listening and speaking. Okay, let's move on because we've got 2 more progressions to consider. So the second one is to do with grammar. Okay, grammar. And in terms of grammar, we're looking at the present perfect, okay, which is, I'm sure it's a grammar point which is well known to us all, maybe the most well-known grammar point, or one of the present perfect. We've probably taught it once or twice, and our learners in here, the context is the 3rd of ESO in Spain, so learners that are about 14, 15. but they will have seen the present perfect before. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got the form at the top. Now the grammar here is inductive. What does it mean when I say inductive grammar? What do we mean when we say we teach students grammar inductively? Any ideas? Put in the chat box if you know what we mean by inductive. Okay, thank you, Montserrat. Yeah, they have to guess the rules. Yeah, exactly. So they have to guess the rules here from the examples rather than just being presented with the rules. Okay, so that's inductive grammar. So how am I approaching this? With my whole class, we're looking at the forms and we're guessing the rules, but then we're not all carrying on with the page. What are we doing? My less able students, I'm going to get them in a group with me, and we're going to go to the back of the grammar book, or the back of the course book, I should say, to the grammar reference section. This has more detailed explanation of rules, more examples. It includes irregular past participles, more exercises. And I'm going to do this with my students. So we're going to go over the rules more, check that we really have the present perfect with my weaker group. My stronger group, I'm going to send them off in pairs, and they're going to do a worksheet, okay, which is more of a free practice worksheet, not so prescriptive. It's to do with have you ever, okay, and the students have a bit more freedom with the language, and this will give the stronger students a chance to listen to each other, to challenge each other together. Okay. Now, once the stronger students have completed their practice, and the weaker students have been with me going over the rules and a bit more basic practice, we're going to go back to the course book and we're going to continue with the exercises in the course book. Okay, and what I might find here is the stronger students, although they've had valuable free practice, they may not be quite as clear on the rules and the irregular past participles as the weaker students. If they have any issues with any of the questions, the weaker students, I'm going to call on the students from my group to try to help them, okay, because they've done extra work on the rules. So the idea here is kind of trying to turn the tables a bit, and rather than just always having, we can't be saying, if you don't know, ask a stronger student. It's not just the stronger students who are always helping another teachers, which somebody asked about earlier on. This exercise, or the way I've tried to design this, the weaker students will have more knowledge of the rules and the irregular past participles than the stronger ones will. Okay, so they can help them, and they should feel a real sense of self-satisfaction in doing this. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next level of my grammar exercise. So we're still on the present perfect. We haven't finished yet. Okay. And I'm going to play you a song. Okay. And you're going to have to guess the name of the song and who it's by. But before that, does anyone use songs in class? Does anyone here use songs in class? And if you do use songs in class, what do you use them for? Okay. Does anyone use songs, and what are they used for? Every day. Wow. Wow. So you're really keen on your songs. Okay, I love them. Time to time, yeah, so I like them too. And I found that my students liked them. Okay, Fatima, so we're getting ideas here in terms of what we would use songs for. So we've got pronunciation and fun. Maybe to contextualize grammar, vocabulary. Okay, and I've used a song here to contextualize grammar. I'm going to play the song to you, and we're going to play Guess the Song. Who can tell me the name of this song and the artist? Okay, put it in the chat box once you've got it. Right. So good. Many of you said U2. But you only got half a point there. Fatima, I think, was the first one to give me the name of the song, which is I still haven't found what I'm looking for. So again, you probably recognize the present perfect in that song. I'm going to show you the lyrics. You can see there are lots of examples of the present perfect in the song. And I'm going to propose an activity here. The activity has to do with a differentiated task in which the outcome is the same for all students. So sometimes if we give students, every student, a different task, and the outcomes are different, it's quite complicated to kind of control or to correct that at the end. Is there any way we can get the same outcome, but different ways to get to that outcome? So that's my aim here. So here are the lyrics again. Here's the verse, okay? And you can see I've got 4 different things the students need to do. In A, what do the students need to do in A? In box A. Put in the chat box, please. What do they need to do here? Okay, verbs, past participles, yeah. They need to put in the past participle. I think the last one, they also need the auxiliary, but basically they have to listen out to the past participle and put it in the gap. Okay, right, fine. On to C. What do they have to do in C? It's a different task. What do they need to do in C? Yeah, good. Thanks, Fatima, again. So you have to check if they're in the right order or the wrong order. The students have to put them in the right order, if you like. Okay, got to put them in the right order. On to D. What do they have to do in D? They have to do 3 things, really. And they have to complete it. Yeah, they have to fill in the gaps. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, they have to fill in the gaps. And what else do they have to do? They have to fill in the gaps, and I'll just give somebody 1 more second to see if they can come up with it. Yeah, well, they also have to put it in order. So it's in the wrong order again. So it's to do with filling in the order. Thank you, Medicamen. Fill in the gaps and put it in order. And then in B, what do they have to do here? They have to fill in the gaps with the auxiliary and the past participle. They have to put it in the right order. And there's one other thing they've got to do. I wonder if anyone can spot the extra task here in B. Anything else they need to do? Have a look at, I'll give you a clue. There are more lines in this one than there need to be. There are more lines than there need to be in B. So what do they need to do? Rewrite, yeah, kind of rewrite. But what they need to do in B is guess new lyrics. Yeah, Maddie Cameron, that's actually the next step. But there are lines here. It's quite difficult to draw here, which are not in the song. Okay, so it's not I have called, it's I've crawled. So we'd have to cross out the ones that aren't in, that don't actually appear in the song. This one isn't here as well. So which is the hardest activity of these 4? Which is the hardest activity of these 4? Yeah, B is clearly the hardest. Which is the easiest activity of these 4? Yeah, okay, I thought we'd get a bit of disagreement here. I'm not actually sure myself. I think the answer is it depends, because I can see some of you going for A and some of you going for C. On the one hand, in A, they hear it in order, and they've probably done this type of thing before, gap fill, and they're just listening out for an individual word. But if we're being strict on the spelling, or it's a hard past participle, it might not be that easy. C, they do get the whole chunk, okay, and they can probably recognize something within the chunk to put it in the right order, so that's easy as well. So it kind of depends, I think. One of those 2 is the easiest. But anyway, the point is that the outcome is the same. So the aim for every task is to get the lyrics of that verse. Okay, so it's just a way of differentiating that task. You can give some students an enormous challenge with with B, I think it was, and perhaps those who are weaker students, an easier task was something like A and C. So there's quite a lot you can do with song lyrics apart from just filling in the gaps. You know, reordering, putting in lines that aren't there for really high level students. Okay. Anyway, so some of you have predicted this activity. It was Fatima saying, this is what I would do afterwards. Is get students to produce something. So we can exploit the song for grammar and vocabulary, but then we want students to produce. We want them to write something or to say something. Okay, so I would say, what else has the person in the song done? Okay, so the person in the song has done many things, but they still can't find what they're looking for. What else has the person done? Okay, and I might expect a weaker student to come up with, you know, an auxiliary and a past participle, a simple one, and then an object. And then I might expect my stronger students to come up with a long, complex sentence, probably give them a model or a couple of ideas here. So every student can complete this task at their level. Okay, it's not 10 closed questions that some students will finish really quickly and some students will finish really slowly or won't finish. Every student can do this, and there's no number of sentences, and there's no prescribed length of a sentence, so they can all do this at their level. We might do this in groups as well. So each student, which group can get the most ways to continue the song, and again, everyone in the group has to contribute at least one or at least two. Okay. Perhaps you can think of other ways to finish the song. If you had to add a past present perfect sentence onto this song, what would you say? Okay, what would you put onto the song? And while people are thinking of that, I noticed Jose said, how long do we have to spend on this kind of activity? Well, again, I mean, sorry, Jose, but I guess the answer there is, again, it depends. But I think something like this, a song, it doesn't just have to be, oh, it's a little treat in the last 5 minutes of the lesson. I mean, you can, of course, as we've seen, you can base an entire lesson around a song. You could do lots of pre-activities at the start, getting students into the topic, seeing what language they already know. Then there can be vocabulary questions, comprehension questions, listening activities to do with filling in gaps and reordering, as we've seen, questions to do with interpreting the song, questions to do with continuing the song. So it doesn't just have to be a little 5-minute activity. I mean, if the students are interested and motivated and learning, I think this can be a long activity. Yeah. Although I see, as I see we haven't come up with too many ways of finishing the song, but we can we can do that after the webinar, because time is bobbing on. Actually, we're going to run over slightly. Okay, so let's get on to our third activity progression, which is writing. Okay, this is the task that our students need to do. I'll just explain it a little bit. It's writing a travel guide about their town. Okay, this is the task in the bottom right. You can see that the students have a model to go on. Okay, I think models, you'll see models popping up a lot. They're very useful for weaker students to follow, but they can also be used at high levels too. So when you get to the high levels, students have to start critically analyzing models. So deciding what's right, what's good about it, what's not so good about it, etc. So they can be used for high levels too. You'll see that the second activity is to do with finding opposites of words in the text. Okay, and the third activity is to do with finding adjectives in sentences before students have to plan their work and write it, and then consult a checklist to see if they did everything they should do. Okay, that's what we've got in our course book. It's a process writing. The idea is it's building up the skills the students need to do the writing. What I would do before starting that activity is brainstorm a little bit, so the students in the class can teach each other lots. It's not just the teacher teaching, and it's not just the course book providing language, of course. There's a lot of language in the room. So every student gets a post-it note. This is my first activity. Every student gets a post-it note, and on that post-it note, they write two things about their town. So I would write, Miraflores de la Sierra is beautiful. In Miraflores de la Sierra, you can climb mountains. There you go. That's what I've written about my town. And every student has to do the same, okay, with as much detail as they can. But it doesn't matter if it's just a word like mine was. So we all fill in our post-it note, and we all stand up and we find a partner. So I go to my partner and I read them out what I've got. Miraflores is beautiful. In Miraflores, you can climb mountains. And I give them my post-it note. They give me their post-it note, which says, Madrid is big. In Madrid, you can go to restaurants. And then they give it to me. Now I go and find a new partner, and I read out my new post-it note, and I say, in Madrid is big. In Madrid, you can go to a restaurant. I give them my post-it note. They read out theirs, which says Barcelona is by the sea. In Barcelona, you can watch football matches. Thank you, Monica, for that. And they hand it to me, and then I go and find another one, etc., etc. So we're mingling around the room, and we're learning lots of adjectives and things you can do in cities or towns from each other. Okay, and at the end of the activity, the teacher can call on certain students to read out what it says in the post-it note. Now, it may not be their own post-it note, but they read it out, and also if they notice any mistakes on it, they can try and correct it. But it's quite a non-threatening way of correcting, because you're not necessarily correcting the one who made the mistake. So that's just a little brainstorm and a way of using knowledge in the room. So yes, a time. I mean, a brainstorm thing like this, I guess, would be 5 minutes or something, Fatima, give or take, or less. It depends how long your lessons are. But again, once again, if the students are talking, and you can see that they're engaged in the activity, often it's a shame to sort of cut these things short, because the teacher has got their plan and then they've got to get writing. If they're really speaking and they're getting something out of it, I personally would be tempted to leave it for longer. The second activity is a cooperative brainstorm. So once again, a similar idea really. You draw a target on your piece of paper. In the middle of the circle, you write your idea. Again, it could be the same vocabulary. Then you turn to your partner, tell them your idea. They write down your idea in the second layer. And then you write down their idea in the second layer. Then the pair turns to another pair. The pair tells them all the ideas they have. Any new ideas that the other pair don't have get written down in the third layer. Vice versa. So now the group of 4 have the same ideas. And then a member from the group of 4 tells the class their ideas, and the whole of the rest of the class writes down any ideas they don't have in the 4th layer. So it's kind of think, pair, share with a class activities. Okay, so I think these brainstorms, again, the students are teaching each other a lot more than if the teacher just stood at the front of the class and says, right, put your hand up if you've got an idea and write it on the board. Okay, this is to do with the students teaching one another. Okay, good. I think we're better prepared, or we've got a lot of ideas for the task now. Exercise 2 says, read the text, find the opposites. So unfriendly, they probably find friendly. Rainy, they probably find sunny, etc. Some students will do this really, really fast. I'm looking for a chicken tikka activity, a kind of extension activity. What could we do here? Any ideas? Before just saying go on to exercise 3, what could we get out of exercise 2? Any ideas? So they found the opposites of the words, and these fast finishers, what might we ask them to do? Any ideas here? Say more activities. Yeah, I mean these ones are adjectives, aren't they? Okay, synonyms, Montserrat. Yeah. Make comparisons. So all good ideas, and I don't think there's one that's any the right idea, of course. I mean, I happen to agree with Montserrat on this one, so I would say, right, you find a synonym for each of those. So I'd expect my stronger students to know maybe very big, or even enormous, or little for small. For friendly, they might know nice. For unfriendly, they might know nasty, etc. So getting to try to find synonyms. Okay, use them in sentences, of course. Yeah. So there's plenty of things we can get them to do. Again, the next activity, they have to find adjectives in sentences and put them in a table. So they need to find 2 adjectives to describe people, and they find helpful and friendly. Okay, fine. But I would again say, how many words can you add to each list? Okay, so I would try to get a bit more out of those fast finishers, those able students. Onto the task. So the students have to plan the task. They've got a lot of input. They've had a lot of input, so they should be in a position to do so. They have to do the writing, and then they have to check their work from a checklist. Okay. So hand their work in, and we teachers, we have to correct their work as you do. Okay. Typically, we might correct their work, correct their mistakes, hand it back to each individual student. We might get them to do some kind of task, they might get them to correct their own mistakes, or we might get them to write the mistakes in their book and the correct ones and to look at next time so they don't make the same mistake twice. So we could kind of do this on a sort of individual level. I found it was effective when I was marking writing exercises to make a quick document with the common errors that all students make and hand it out in the next lesson with the writing for the students to correct. Okay, so they correct each other's mistakes as well as their own, and they can learn hopefully more quickly. An issue with this, of course, again, is that some students will correct them all really quickly, and some of them will find them quite difficult and won't be able to correct them. So we need a methodology, we need an activity to take that into account. Okay, so this is what we're going to propose. So some of you are kind of craning your neck here, try to read what's on the screen, but they're just sentences with mistakes in. Okay, there could be mistakes made in this activity. This is a grass skirt. So you probably see these on lampposts. I know I see them in Spain. I don't know if people see them from other countries as well. Over here we get them on lampposts, so people offering their services perhaps to look after your children or your grandma or to clean your house, etc. These kind of grass skirts. So what I've got here is I've made a grass skirt, and each little piece of paper has a mistake on. And I'm going to dot some of these grass skirts around the room. Each student needs to get up, find a grass skirt, and pick off a mistake. They need to go back to their book, write the mistake in their book, and they try to correct it. Once they've corrected it, they stand up and look for another student who has also corrected it and swap. So you take another mistake and you go back to your desk and you correct that one as well, and then you find another student. Okay, what happens if you've got a student who doesn't know how to correct the mistake? Because that's going to happen. Well, if the student isn't sure, they just put their hand up. Okay, and those students who have just corrected a mistake and are looking for another one, if they see anyone with their hand up, they go over to that student and see if they can help. Okay, the teacher is also mingling to be on hand for a student who's got their hand up. So in this way, you've got students helping one another. So a student helps a student who can't correct a mistake, and then they are able to. They swap their paper and they find another one and take it back to their desk. And hopefully this time around, they can correct the mistake. And then they get up, and then they are going to go and try and help a student who can't correct the mistake. Okay, so it's not the end of the world if you've taken something and you can't correct it, because help will be at hand, help will arrive. Okay, so I think this is a good activity for a mixed ability class, and it solves this problem of just handing out the mistakes and some students correcting them really quickly and some not being able to. Okay, so hopefully that's something that you might want to try out in your classes. Yeah, good. Well, that brings me to the end of the writing progression, if you like, and there's just one last point to make in the in the webinar, and this is to do with the stigma question. So sometimes I think as teachers we will worry that students might feel to be labelled, which is the picture here, in these mixed ability classes if they're if they're getting help, if they're doing sort of easier activities and what have you. And obviously we will try to be diplomatic, but I think the key here is to sort of generate an atmosphere in class in which we all understand we have different strengths and weaknesses. We're not all of us good at everything. That's okay. Okay, if we see somebody struggling, what do? We try and help them. And that's the sort of the atmosphere we want to try to create in class in these mixed ability groups. And there's no option anyway. I mean, the alternative is to do nothing and pretend that all students have exactly the same level and ignore strengths and weaknesses and just do the same for everyone. But I mean that's not attending to their needs. But also weaker students, from my experience, they really appreciate support more than worrying about whether they're stigmatized. They will like that support. That's what I found. I think that's maybe something to bear in mind. Okay, good. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. I'll just quickly say where the resources were from. The activities came from a secondary book, Pearson book, which is called Next Move. I'm going to put my email address there, and if you've got any questions, feel free to add me on LinkedIn or to check out a blog which myself and my colleagues Elena and my manager Brian Enquist, we write teaching ideas for that blog, so have a look at it if you like. If anyone's got any questions here, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If there's anything you'd like to ask here as well, that's also okay. Otherwise we'll sign off. Okay. Okay. Well, we don't seem to have any questions coming through, but so I'll just say thanks very much for coming, for giving me what's turned out to be an hour of your time rather than 45 minutes. So I appreciate that. I know teachers are very busy. I hope I've been able to give you one or two ideas to use in your classes. What do you do to shy students who don't dare to ask? Yeah, Fatima, it's a good question. I mean, it's like that thing, you say as a teacher, do you understand? And well, those who don't understand are not going to say that they won't understand. They'll just keep quiet, as you mentioned. So it's a way of, asking questions or checking their understanding through activities. I guess that's kind of what you're referring to. And again, it's about knowing your students and giving them chances, each individual student, to show what they can do, I suppose. But again, I think shy students as well, is good to get plenty of pair and group work in rather than putting them under pressure in front of the class. Anyway, I think we're going to sign off there because it's 6:30. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you found it useful, and I hope to see you again in a webinar sometime soon. Okay, so goodbye.